Welcome back to Layer by Layer Go. I'm Don, and before we dive in, let me just say, things are really starting to roll. In the past month alone, the show and our clips on YouTube have been seen over 14,000 times. That blows my mind, so thank you for tuning in, sharing, and keeping this fire burning. And if you haven't checked them out yet, we've added a couple new layers to the mix. The daily flight plans. Quick, tasty missions that hit your inbox to keep you moving forward. And the classic clips. These bite-sized gems from past episodes that are popping up all over the feeds. So yeah, it's not just Sundays anymore. We're layering throughout the week. Now today, we're diving into a truth that sounds simple, but if you let it sink in, it'll change the way you write, the way you cook, the way you plan, maybe even the way you live. Less is more. Stop piling on. Great songwriting isn't about adding more. It's about cutting away what's not needed. A powerful song can live on a single hook, one perfect line, or just the right groove. Silence isn't emptiness. Silence is a tool. Space is a flavor. And this doesn't apply just to music. You'll taste it in the skillet, you'll see it in your planner, and you'll feel it every time you're tempted to complicate something that was already working just fine. So today I'm going to prove it to you with shrimp, with sourdough, with tubthumping, with sticky notes, with whiteout, with Boston, and with one of the most legendary TV turnarounds of all time, Yellowstone. Alright, let's talk about one of the simplest anthems ever written, Tubthumping by Chumbawamba. You know it. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. That line has probably been sung in more dive bars than Happy Birthday. Here's where it gets fun. Back in the 90s, my wife and I were in a band called the Tans. And yes, we actually played Tubthumping on our live set. When we kicked into that chorus, the place went nuts. People didn't know the verses. They didn't know the band's politics. Heck, most of us didn't even know Chumbawamba from Jambalaya. But the moment that chorus hit, suddenly every single person in the room was your best friend, spilling their drinks, arms around shoulders, shouting, "I get knocked down," like their lives depended on it. It was chaos. It was glorious, and it was all built on one simple line. That's the magic of less is more. One chorus, one hook, hammered home with persistence. They didn't write a symphony. They didn't layer in 47 bridges and a flute solo. They gave us one undeniable idea, and it carried them around the world. And beyond the music, it's a philosophy. Knocked down, get back up. Rejected, keep going. That's what makes Tubthumping the perfect soundtrack for today's theme. And for the record, every time I repeat myself on this podcast, I'm not rambling. I'm just teaching you how to write a global hit. Where's my royalty check? All right, let's saddle up for one big one. Because if you're going to remember anything from this episode, it's this story. It's a story about stacked rejection, a story about persistence, a story about what happens when you refuse to complicate the vision you know is right. And it's not some little feel-good parable. This is legend. I'm talking about Yellowstone. Taylor Sheridan, the man who took one script that nobody wanted and built a TV empire that everybody now lines up to watch. And he did it with the simplest, boldest truth of all. Less is more. Sheridan didn't start out as Hollywood royalty. He wasn't a Spielberg or a Scorsese. He was a working actor. Bit parts on TV. Maybe you saw him as Deputy Hale on Sons of Anarchy. But inside, he wanted more. He wanted to tell stories, not just act in them. So he sat down and wrote a script. And not just any script. He wrote Yellowstone. Think about the guts that takes. A modern-day Western about land, family, and legacy. Wide open Montana skies. A ranching dynasty. Power struggles written into the dirt. Now here's the Hollywood reaction. No! Not once, over and over. Too slow, too rural, too risky. Nobody cares about cowboy hats anymore. In Hollywood, they call it a pass. Sheridan started stacking passes, each one like a rejection slip on the pile. That pile got tall fast. If you've ever sent a demo out to labels, or pitched a book, or even just applied for jobs and heard nothing back, you know that sinking feeling. That whisper that says, maybe I should give up. Most people fold. Most scripts die there. But Sheridan didn't fold. He didn't rewrite it into a police procedural. He didn't cram in a spaceship to get the sci-fi crowd. He didn't bloat it with subplots to please the executives. He stayed true to the lean, raw story. Family, land, legacy. That was it. That's less is more, and it almost killed him to hold that line, but he held it. Finally, Paramount blinked. They didn't roll out the red carpet. They didn't hand him the keys to the kingdom. It was more like, fine, let's give it a shot. But here's the thing about persistence. You don't need 20 yeses. You need one. That one yes put Yellowstone on the air. And then it exploded. It became the #1 cable drama in America. Families tuned in together. Farmers, city folks, suburban families, Kevin Costner in a cowboy hat. Turns out the world was hungry for that. From a stack of no's came the biggest yes of his life. And Sheridan didn't stop with one show. He built an empire. 1883, raw, brutal, stunning, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Sam Elliott, The Trek West. 1923, Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren in a saga of drought, prohibition, depression. 1944, next up, the Duttons in World War II America. The Madison, a New York family thrown into the Yellowstone world. The Beth and Rip spinoff, everyone's favorite volatile couple taking center stage. Why Marshalls? Casey Dutton carrying the badge. 6666, the legendary 4-6's ranch in Texas, which Sheridan actually bought outright. That's not just content. One script, one strong idea, layered persistence, turned it into 7 shows. And here's where persistence turns poetic. When Sheridan was pitching Yellowstone, studios wouldn't even take his calls. Now, Paramount pays him $50,000 a week to film on his ranch. Sheridan bought Bosque Ranch, 600 acres. He bought the 4-6s, 266,000 acres. The very studio that stacked rejections against him now cuts him checks to lease his land. Think about that. From outsider begging for a meeting to landlord of the empire. That's persistence, layered so high it became unshakable. And Sheridan's not done. With Paramount, he's building SGS Studios, the largest film and TV studio in Texas. 450,000 square feet, state of the art. From rejected writer to studio builder, from struggling actor to empire maker. That's not luck. That's less is more plus persistence stacked higher than the mountains he films. So what does this mean for you? It means you don't need to chase 20 projects. You don't need to complicate the idea that already works. You need one strong story, one simple idea, and the guts to keep showing up with it. That's how you turn stacked rejection into stacked victory. That's how you build a Yellowstone of your own. So here's the journaling spark for you. What's your Yellowstone? What's the idea you shelved because of rejection? What's the script? The song, the invention, the recipe you know in your bones is strong, but you've let it sit in the drawer. Sheridan's story says, don't water it down, don't give it up, keep it simple, keep it strong, and keep pitching. Because the day will come when someone says yes, and when they do, every rejection you stacked will turn into the foundation of something legendary. And Sheridan went from stacked rejections to building a television empire. Yellowstone, then 1883, 1923, Tulsa King, Lioness, and now Paramount even pays him $50,000 a week to film on his own ranches. From outsider to landlord, that's persistence, layered so high it became unshakable. And here's where it gets personal for me. One of Yellowstone's most unforgettable characters is Beth Dutton. Do you know Beth Dutton? If you watch the show at all, you know Beth Dutton. Fierce, brilliant, and dangerous. She actually inspired one of my own songs called She. I wrote lyrics channeling Beth's fire. That mix of grit, vulnerability, and explosive energy. And that song went on to win Pop Song of the Year at a California radio station last year in 2024.
She got a style, she got a way. She got what it takes. Got her game plan, always in play. Got a scar, those deep cut wounds. Yeah. Well, she got what it takes. Don't take no bull, no. Nix it in the bud. Hey.
video, folks, you just saw the full music video right here in the episode. Beth Dutton doesn't play small, and neither should the music she inspires. By the way, I've started building out something I'm calling the Vault, which I just mentioned. It's the page on my site where I keep my original tracks and some special extras. It's where you'll find She, and over time it's going to be the place where I tuck away the deeper cuts and the heart tracks. If you want the full song, that's where to hear it. Just go to layerbylayergo.com/vault. All right, let's move this lesson from the big screen to the skillet. Because less is more isn't just about TV shows and anthems. It's about what's on your plate. One of my absolute favorites, garlic butter shrimp. I grew up in North Carolina, spent a lot of time on the coast catching shrimp. I love shrimp. I love all seafood. But this is one of my all-time favorites. And this one proves you don't need 20 ingredients to make something unforgettable. 5. That's it. Shrimp, butter, garlic, lemon, parsley. You melt the butter, garlic hits the pan. Suddenly the kitchen smells like heaven's waiting room. Toss in the shrimp, sear them till they're just pink, squeeze a little lemon, hit it with the parsley, and you're done in 10 minutes flat. Now, if this sounds familiar, yeah, it's kind of the stripped-down cousin of shrimp scampi. Scampi usually calls for white wine, pasta, and a sauce that feels a little more like Julia Child's Paris culinary school. Mine is more like, you're hungry, you've got the skillet, and you've got 10 minutes. Both are delicious, but for today's theme, less is definitely more. Here's the part that's dangerous. Serve it with a thick slice of sourdough toast. Golden, crunchy, dip it in the pan juices, and that bread soaks up the garlic butter like a sponge of joy. That's when you realize restraint is out the window, because you're not stopping at one slice. You don't need truffles or saffron threads. You just need 5 good ingredients, done right. Less is more. And persistence? That sourdough starter you've kept alive week after week, that's your Yellowstone. That's your stack of rejections turned into something golden and worth the wait. So yeah, less is more. Except butter. Then, sorry Doc, more is more. More. Alright, so we've tasted it in the skillet and we've seen it on the screen. But let's zoom out. Because this principle of less is more plus persistence shows up everywhere. I want to give you a stack of stories, proof that sometimes one simple idea pushed forward with grit can change everything. Yellowstone and Taylor Sheridan. Sheridan wrote one script, Hollywood stacked the rejections. He didn't complicate it, didn't water it down, he kept pitching. That one yes from Paramount turned into an empire. 1883, 1923. Tulsa King, a Lioness, and now Paramount pays him $50,000 a week to film on his ranch. One script, one vision, persistence stacked into a legend. The second one, Tubthumping by Chumbawamba. One chorus, that's it. I get knocked down, but I get up again. It carried them around the world, and I carried it on stage with my band, The Tans. Proof that sometimes all you need is one undeniable line, shouted until it sticks. Here's a third one. Garlic butter shrimp. 5 ingredients, 10 minutes, 1 slice of sourdough toast dipped into garlic butter. Unforgettable. Doesn't need 20 spices, just the right ones done right. Less is more. And that sourdough starter, that's persistence, baby. Post-it notes. Here's a fun one. That sticky note glue was actually a failure. Too weak. Couldn't hold anything. But instead of tossing it out, they reframed it. Persistence turned a flop into one of the most iconic office tools in history. Sometimes your failed idea just needs a new lens. Whiteout. Liquid paper. Bette Nesmith Graham, mother of Mike Nesmith of the Monkees. She was a secretary who kept making typing mistakes, Instead of giving up, she mixed up some white paint and brushed over the errors. That simple invention became liquid paper, a global office staple. One small fix turned into a fortune. Tom Schultz of Boston. By day, he was an engineer at Polaroid. Nights and weekends, he was in his basement building his own recording gear and tracking demos. Labels kept saying no, but he stayed true to the sound in his head. Finally, Epic. Yes, Epic, the record label. The result? Boston's debut album. Over 17 million copies sold, with More Than a Feeling blasting out of bedrooms and stadiums. One idea, perfected, persisted, and unleashed. That's 6 stories, 6 proofs. Different worlds, same lesson. You don't need to juggle 20 projects. You need one strong thing, stripped back to its essence, and persistence stacked on top of it until the world finally pays attention. So here's your journaling spark for this week. What's my more than a feeling? What's the one project, song, or idea I need to keep pitching, stacking, and refining until it breaks through? Write it down, because sometimes less really is more, and persistence makes it unstoppable. Now let's hit some songs to prove less is more. Music where the power came from space, restraint, and one undeniable idea. Here's a playlist for you. It's a medley. Lord, Royals. Practically no instruments, just a beat and her voice, and it top charts worldwide. Billie Eilish, Ocean Eyes. Whisper vocals, sparse production. It blew up on SoundCloud and made her a star. Adele, Someone Like You. Just a piano and voice. That's all. And it won Grammys because it didn't need anything else. Coldplay, Yellow. One riff repeated. That was enough to launch their career. Joe Cocker, You Are So Beautiful. Barely 2 minutes long. Simple piano, raw voice, still makes people cry. But if you want the ultimate example, the crown jewel, it's the Beatles. June 25th, 1967, the first ever global satellite broadcast, Our World. 25 countries tuned in, 400 million people, the biggest TV audience in history at that point. The Beatles could have played anything, a complex masterpiece, something to flex their studio genius. She Loves You, Yay, 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 I Want to Hold Your Hand. But instead, they sang one line, All You Need Is Love, over and over, 5 words, and it landed. Across languages, borders, politics, everyone got it. The song went number 1 in the US and UK, and more than 50 years later, people still sing it as a global anthem. That's why I say, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is strip it down to one strong idea. And hey, that's the spirit behind the daily flight plans. One spark, one clear mission each day. Not 20 things on a checklist, just one. If you want those, you just subscribe to the YouTube channel, to Rumble, to any place you hear my podcast, whether it's Spotify or Apple or Amazon Music or Buzzsprout, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And of course, I do pop them up on Instagram and Facebook as well. 50 years ago today, August 24th, 1975, Queen started recording Bohemian Rhapsody. Now here's what gives me chills. It didn't begin as a giant, towering masterpiece. It started as a tiny spark, a kernel, a postulate. Freddie Mercury had this little idea. What if we did an opera inside a rock song? That's it. Just a seed. Simple, innocent, almost laughable. The record labels laughed at him. The producers laughed at him. But Freddie held on to it. And with persistence, that tiny idea became an entire album. A Night at the Opera. A treasure. arguably Queen's finest. And that one seed grew so massive that a decade later, in 1985, it was shaking the world at Live Aid, the greatest rock performance of all time. And that's the paradox of less is more. It's not that everything has to be small or restrained. It's that the biggest legacies grow from the smallest seeds. Taylor Sheridan had one script. Chumbawamba had one chorus. The Beatles had 5 words. And Freddie, he had one tiny spark, an opera and a rock song. That's all it takes. One strong seed, layer persistence on top, and it can grow into a forest that shades the whole world. So yeah, less is more, but sometimes less becomes Bohemian Rhapsody. And in my book, that's a trade I'll take every time. So that's the lesson for today. Less is more. It's not about shrinking your dreams. It's about starting with the seed. Sheridan had one script. Chumbawamba had one chorus. The Beatles had 5 little words. All you need is love. And Freddie Mercury, he had one innocent spark. What if we did an opera and a rock song? That seed grew into Bohemian Rhapsody, A Night at the Opera, and eventually shook the planet at Live Aid. One spark, one seed, layered with persistence, and it becomes a forest. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here with Layer by Layer Go. This podcast is the album, but the extras, that's where the hidden tracks live. If you want my daily flight plans, those quick sparks in between Sundays, you'll find them on my YouTube channel, Rumble page, and right here on your podcast feed on Buzzsprout, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen. They're not big lectures, just little pushes to keep you moving forward, layer by layer. And if you want my original music, including the full version of She, the Beth Dutton inspired song that won Pop Song of the Year, it's tucked away in the vault at layerbylayergo.com/vault. That's where I keep my originals safe, and you can stream them straight from me. Oh, and don't forget, the Layer by Layer Go journal is out on Amazon, ready for you to scribble, plan, and turn sparks into action. And yes, if you want to fuel this engine, you can always hit my Buy Me a Coffee page. In fact, buy me lots of coffee. Toss in $25 or more, I'll even send you a free CD. Because yes, I still believe in shiny discs. Like what you hear? Prove it. Hit like. Want more? Subscribe. Want me to quiz you and maybe change your life? Go to the code. layerbylayergo.com/code. Got feelings? Drop a comment. Want to tell the whole world how amazing this podcast is? Share this beauty with your friends. Next Sunday, we might flip the coin, because sometimes it's not less is more. Sometimes it's go big or go home. Either way, don't miss it. Less is more, my friends, unless it's garlic or butter or Queen harmonies, then more is absolutely more.